Next up is Matthew's request. He's asked that I do the second season of Huntik, so let's get to it. Sadly, my review for Huntik Season 1 has been taken off of YouTube. I don't know if or when I'll ever get it back up, but in the meantime, here are some details for Season 2. The latter came out in September of 2011 in Italy and April 2013 for Nicktoons. Only the first 11 episodes were shown on TV in the US before the rest were released online. Can't wait to get to that one and see what sort of cliffhanger they left on for the TV-only crowd. And a brief recap for those unfamiliar with Season 1, or at least the ending of it. Our heroes just defeated Professor Eggman after summoning the Titan of Immortality, which is done by banishing him through a portal to the spirit world. It ended with a surprise party, but the whereabouts of Locke's father, Ethan, is unknown. This leads us to the first episode of the season with Doorway to Huntik. Our heroes are infiltrating Organization Central and fighting the usual suits. They're looking for information on Ethan, and once they find it, they leave right away before getting overwhelmed. Later, Dante makes a call and...
We're going to South America?
So Dante and his team head to some waterfall where Ethan was last seen, but the organization is already there, led by its new leader, Wilder. Seems they have new titans, Venomaster and Gigadrone. So Locke, now voiced by Drew Aaron, summons Kipper in, but something happens.
Whoa! What happened to Kipperin? It feels powerful!
Maybe because you formed a strong bond with your father's Titan. Kipperin's become power bonded.
Sure, let's introduce a new mechanic right away. Could have had more fanfare to mark the occasion, but whatever. It's kinda cool. I guess power-bonded titans work better with their seekers and are just stronger in general. But why does he turn off the mode just one enemy short?
Now give me your best shot!
Just kidding! He moves too fast for that. Sophie and Zalia also win their battles, and I guess they're getting along better than in Season 1. Here's where I'll note that the animation has notably changed a bit since last time, as character movements feel much smoother a la Fantasy Island from Mondo TV. It's not that uncanny, but it's still kinda weird. Later, Sophie senses a lot of Seeker energy below them, and our heroes guess that Ethan was here and faked his own disappearance. They try heading down but get attacked by Dark Dryad, a titan used by Stack, a bald-headed organization member. Sherritt finds the cave they needed and our heroes escape into it. That's where our heroes find the Nexus, which is a gateway to the Titan world Huntik. They think Ethan might be there, so Sophie and Zalia try to open it up with Ethan's holotome and the gatekeeper Titan, Genesea. This establishes a connection to Ethan, who appears as a hologram.
It's really you!
Look, it's a dream come true. My, how you've grown. But if you're here, that means my boy is a member of the Huntik Foundation.
Might not be the best emotional reunion, but at least Locke jumped to, I have friends now, to him. As Ethan wonders about Sophie's link to the Casterwill clan, the organization tries to break in. Dante and Zalia go to fight them off, and while Sophie wants to help too, she's told to stay behind with Locke. This is also when we're reminded of her losing Sabriel, her favorite Titan, back in Season 1. Anyway, Ethan tells Locke that he traveled to Huntik against the Blood Spiral Brotherhood, the other villain faction that Razumoth is shown to be part of. Sophie also learns that she descended from Lord Casterwill, who was responsible for bringing Titans to Earth. As the battles outside get intense and the Nexus begins to break, Ethan leaves Locke with the task of reuniting the Casterwill family and using the secret files on his holotome to find the Spiral. Locke and Sophie then rejoin Dante and Zalia to fight off the organization, with Locke using a power-bonded Basilard to turn the tide. Everyone returns to Dante's house where Zalia can begin hacking the holotome, and that's when they learn of their mission to find the Spiral. Now, for a first episode released 2 years after Season 1, this felt like a return to form. We still have fast-paced action and plot that resembles what some American shows do, for better or for worse. and we're picking up right where we left off from last season while setting up new villains and allies to keep an eye on. Of course, other things are happening on the side, as shown in the Tower of Nostradamus. The organization manages to find it turned into a museum, and is looking for a scrying glass that can see the future. The Huntik Foundation sends out a distress call for our heroes to intervene, but not before Ethan briefly contacts them to use said scrying glass to find something called the Will Blade. So like last season, I guess many of these episodes will have self-contained plot elements while slowly building towards a bigger story. That's a really funny guidance system you have there. Our heroes make it into the tower, rescue the hostages, and confront the organization while also dealing with the Guardian Titans who can literally see every attack you make. We also get to see Wilder's Titan.
Destroy! Incubate!
Of course, because an enemy attack hits one of the sentries, they lock onto and capture the bad guys. This lets our heroes get to the scrying glass, which reveals a message about where to go next. Avalon. This becomes the plot of Cave of the Casterwills, where they need to head to England to find King Arthur's Island. Sophie's butler, LeBlanc, joins them this time since he was tutoring the kids, and... Haha, you dumb butler. Anyway, surprise! Enemy Seekers and Titans. This causes Sophie to feel bad about holding everyone else back on account of her losing Sabriel. But something in the cave draws her in, and it's because of this one lady and her granddaughter who are Casterwills as well. Sophie struggles against some crystal trying to subdue her, LeBlanc helps her with his titans, and eventually she decides to reach the crystal and receives a vision of... Uncle Iroh from Avatar? But yeah, she now knows she's a Casterwill. So the guardians of this place, Nimue and Vivian, informed them that this place was meant for them, meaning the guys outside are also guardians who are obligated to fight non-Casterwills. To stop this, Sophie needs to take one more test by acquiring Sorcerel, sister titan to Sabriel. This results in a miracle where Sabriel returns in power-bonded form, causing the guardians to stop attacking our heroes. They then learn where Avalon is, and I'll try to summarize as much of these episodes as possible from here on out. In episode 4, Locke and company activate the Dragon's Breath that creates a light bridge towards Avalon, and actually get the upper hand after using Divine Mirror Kagami to redirect the attack from King Basilisk that turns Dante into stone.
Fang!
Jerry! Sophie!
Hey, aren't you the one who struck my face?
Actually, they cut that bit from the English release 2 episodes ago. As things look dire, Lord Casterwill appears in spirit to knight Locke and give him the Will Blade. I'd say this is where he calls upon Grayskull and becomes He-Man. I mean, he looks like the 2002 version of Adam anyway. But what really happens is that Locke summons the Titan Pendragon, who curb stomps the organization and forces it to retreat. Our heroes won the day, but a red comet appears in the sky as part of a mysterious prophecy. Nobody remembers what happened as Locke was turning the tide with the Will Blade. Hell, all that is left besides the blade is the inactive Pendragon amulet, which is currently in the blade. Our heroes then bump into more Casterwills who are overly protective of their secret library. After a scuffle, we learn that they only wanted to protect them from what's to come. But more importantly...
I'm Lucas Casterwill, your brother.
Oh, of course! Care to explain why you didn't find her sooner when you learned of what she's been doing lately?
There's no time to talk about that.
I don't even have time to explain why I don't have time to explain.
Of course there isn't. He only came now because of the comet, whose appearance means the end of the world. Sophie demands to be tested to prove that she can fight like everyone else, so she and Locke are tasked to steal the amulet of the Titan Void, which is currently with the organization. This is done by the two looking around the bookshop of Claus, a former organization operative introduced last season, and was Zalia's adoptive father. Afterwards, and some reconciling from Lucas, our heroes learn about the spiral being related to something called the Betrayer, and the Nullifiers who almost brought the end of the world. Our heroes need to stop them again, so to learn more information, they find Klaus's petrified body, which as a reminder was a result of what happened in Season 1, and unfreeze him with King Basilisk. It takes some convincing, but Klaus eventually reveals that the Spiral are looking for Void, and that our heroes can't let that happen. After they eventually find the lab and the Void amulet, Ethan contacts Locke again to warn him about the Blood Spiral. They're coming for the amulet too, and even the organization helps fight them. But they're no match for the Serpent Titan. Dante tries using Arc Warder, but it and the amulet get destroyed by Razumov.
Such simple fools. Certainly you must have suspected it. We are the messengers of oblivion, part seeker, part nightmare.
Well, I kinda like the new duds. Though you've certainly got even more OP to be doing all this. As servants to the betrayer, the Blood Spiral plans to bring him back and end the world. They overpower our heroes and take the Amulet of Void, so we know now that the villains of this season mean business. The next episode involves Locke and Sophie transporting a new amulet, but the real meat of the story comes when Zalia visits her old orphanage and sees the Fears brothers, Den and Harrison. They and some other orphans are recruited by Tantris of the Blood Spiral. Zalia attempts to save the brothers, but is only partially successful.
Lady, you have no idea. Any way out is a good way out.
Oh hi, Ben Diskin! The Blood Spiral come out in force to take the new amulet from Locke and Sophie. Dan realizes that the Blood Spiral are corrupting him and the other orphans, but Harrison still chooses to stay behind. So Den bonds with the Titan that the Spiral is after, called Vigilante, and is given a place in the Huntik Foundation. The next episode has our heroes looking for the Ring of Arc, which belongs to a legendary Titan who can manipulate dreams. They get sent into their own dream worlds to deal with their own fears and issues, and Locke even learns more about the Will Blade. And even though it's in the dream, he is able to summon Pendragon there. They capture Arc in the end, leading to the next episode where they need to capture the Titan Medusa before the organization does. During a fight, Sophie recognizes this bald-headed muscle guy named Keel, who burned down her old home when she was a little girl. Because that fight didn't go so well, Zalia feels that her spy abilities weren't good enough and ends up leaving the team. Then the next episode is mostly about Den and Harrison trying to learn new Seeker abilities from their respective sides. Den has trouble learning because he lets his anger get the better of him, but Harrison barely has any trouble. Oh, and the villains found out about Stack, who joined their side recently, was a spy from the organization, and so...
Watch, my children. This is what the Blood Spirals do to spies.
Obviously, they fade away before we see him get Shang Tsung'd, but the implication is still there. He's dead as hell. The highlight of this episode is how Den learns to become a better Seeker to protect the weak, even if it means facing his brother. Harrison is taken away before Den can do more to help him. But wait, this Lady Spiral looks familiar. I wonder who that is. Episode 11 involves our heroes helping another Casterwill, Foucault, from another Blood Spiral attack. Foucault knows where some other Casterwills are but won't help, so our heroes decide to consult the Huntik Council for their next move. And this is the point where the show goes online. Well, could have been worse. They could have switched during a more serious cliffhanger. Anyway, the council agrees that something must be done. One of its members, Tien, is a Casterwill who suggests activating the blue star located in the Temple of the Sun in Mexico. If that happens, the other Casterwills will come out of hiding. Our heroes head over to do just that, but realize that the process is tied to summoning the Titan. I probably butchered that. Sophie versus Keel, as he was directly responsible for her parents' death. Locke summons Quetzalcoatl and repels the Blood Spiral so the blue star can be shined upon the world. Episode 13 sees the entire family gathering in secret so they can start their counterattack. The family isn't happy about working with outside help, but Sophie insists on an alliance with the Huntik Foundation. The other Casterwills aren't willing to go along, so Sophie has to endure a trial of courage to assume control of her clan. Locke helps her, of course, since he has the Will Blade and wants to prove her right, which leads to Sophie gaining the legendary Titan Mithras. Meanwhile, Zalia sneaks away to send information to our heroes, but when Tantris finds her, she power bonds with Garion to mind scramble his ass. so her cover is safe, for now, and everyone else learns of the Spiral army coming their way, thanks to her intel. Phew! Halfway through and it's getting pretty exciting! Let's keep it up as we enter the last half of the season. So, the Spiral War begins with the Casterwills still not accepting Sophie as leader. Yet the army shows up and it's time for battle.
Blade call! Shadow point!
Well, it's about as epic as the networks will allow. Lucas and crew don't participate because he wants to help the others escape. They're stuck in the rock fortress, so Nimue decides to make the hard decision to use a powerful spell to repel the enemies, and passing her powers to Sophie. This helps Sophie power bond with Sorcerel and take the fight to Kale, proving once and for all that she can lead the Casterwill family. After a filler episode about rat titans related to the Pied Piper, we begin the search for the legendary titan Umbra, who once belonged to one of the sons of Lord Casterwill. In fact, most of the legendary titans belonged to the family. It's Dante who ends up bonding with Umbra and using its teleportation powers to get our heroes out. Though it gets weaker every time this happens, so they have to play it smart. Next episode, Dante decides to take time off and meet an old friend of his for some sort of training. Locke is made the leader and must lead the team to find Antediluvian, a titan in the castle of Vlad Dracul. This episode is partially about Locke trying to be a leader in place of Dante, because the latter had a disturbing dream of the future during his fight with Ark and wants to prepare for it. Sadly, Harrison was not only able to bond with Antediluvian, but power bond with him too, which is bad news for our heroes. Dante makes it back in time to use the spiral mark on the heart of Vlad Dracul and disrupt the spiral. In the following episode, we see Razumoth conversing with the Betrayer.
The time of my coming is almost at hand. Nothing must be allowed to stand in my way.
I can't seem to find a voice credit for him in either language, which is weird since he's supposed to be the big bad of this series. Anyway, the next legendary titan in play is Phoenix. We get a reunion with Montague and Tersley. They look into some ruins to destroy the anti-magic lodestone so they can get into the volcano later, which they do in the next episode.
I know you aren't comfortable around fire. Marching into a volcano isn't going to be easy.
Don't worry. I got the blood spiral who burned my home, didn't I?
Yeah, she still has to conquer her fear of fire. And what better way to do that by going through a volcano? Our heroes get inside and find the seal. Then they jump the baddies and...
Spider time!
Oh right, was too busy to notice the inconsistencies. Well, that's TV for you. No time to check. The villains get a power boost and overwhelm our heroes at first. But realizing her friends are in trouble, Sophie takes the plunge into the lava, overcoming her trauma, and manages to bond with Phoenix and win the day. 6 episodes remain and we have one for Greer, that honorable organization operative from last season. Our heroes inform him about Razumoth and the blood spiral who are causing trouble for his people. But before he can help, they need to go to the professor's lab to retrieve data on Razumoth to see if he has a weakness. At least we get to hear more Richard Epcar.
Wilder, don't choose your personal goals over what's best for the organization.
Fighting side by side is important to them. This is a test of trust.
Sophie confronts Wilder, who only wants glory from leading the organization, and sadly defeats him with Phoenix. All the while, Locke and Den find the data on Razumoth, then Greer captures Wilder and assumes control over the organization. Now it's only the blood spiral left for our heroes to deal with, which is good because Harrison receives Tantra's amulets and assumes his position as a master. He and Razumoth go on a secret mission to get the key of Nefertiti, which Zalia relays to her friends. Dante and the others show up to fight using a sandstorm they created as a cover. Harrison is forced to retreat while Razumoth is captured. Our heroes go into the tomb and find the necklace of Tutankhamun, which could control the nullifiers. However, Harrison goes to recover Razumoth, who has the final legendary titan within him.
Unleash legendary titan of war! Legion!
Well damn, that looks kinda scary. It gets worse, because Legion can apparently absorb other titans into its body and use their abilities. Our heroes get the hell out, while Dante at first wants to sacrifice himself so they can do that, but his Titan takes the necklace from him, wishing to take the sacrifice instead. Either way, the bad guys have the necklace, causing our heroes to worry about what's to come. They decide to have a little downtime by resting up at Locke's childhood home in Ireland, but then Scarlet shows up to ask for their help in finding the castle of Tyrannog. During the adventure, Locke ends up falling into a gap between dimensions where he is able to make contact with his father, who helps him remember what he did when wielding the Wheelblade. This leads to Lord Casterwill appearing and properly giving him the power to bond with the Sword and Pendragon. With both, he conquers the castle and receives the Titans that guarded it. But of course, Locke is just happy to have talked with his father again.
This was different. We really talked.
What did he say?
He said he was proud of me.
Episode 23 marks the start of The Longest Night, and they still don't know where the spiral mark is. By the way, I don't think I showed you all what the nullifiers look like, and yeah, that is pretty scary. Apparently they're all super huge, and despite what we're about to see, they aren't Titans as such, despite coming from the same world as them. Anyway, Razimoth speaks with the spirit of the Betrayer, who plans to activate the spiral mark tonight. Our heroes learn from Ethan that they need to find Nostradamus' tomb, but thanks to the Betrayer, the spiral beat them to it. After a fight, they find their way in and find another message telling them of what will cause the longest night to end. Razimoth performs some ritual to invoke Void, which seems to affect most of the blood spiral. Zalia is able to relay her location to Dante, the Siberian Plateau, but not before Void was summoned.
And see the spiral mark for yourselves!
So, Void is like a Cthulhu alien, and it's massive despite being a small scout unit for its kind. Our heroes warp over using Umbra, and Dante proclaims they have a world to save. But before that, episode 24 shows us some backstory regarding Lord Casterwill, telling his family to keep evil at bay and prevent the use of the blood spiral. Guess they couldn't be bothered to keep records of its location or anything, but at least they sealed it, though Razimoth plans to break it after deciding to fight our heroes personally. Then runs off to find Harrison. Dante fights Razimoth mano a mano, while Locke and Sophie confront Legion. They realize that Legion's amulet can only absorb so many Titans, so they manage to break it after Dante swipes it off Razimoth. While they attempt to destroy the spiral mark, it turns out the Betrayer tricked them into breaking the seal. Now the red comet will make its way here and release the nullifiers.
No, Dad, what did I do?
It gets worse. Because the Casterwills are coming with reinforcements, they're at risk of being completely destroyed by the red comet. Everyone scrambles to either get them to stop coming or interrupt the ritual. And then Razimoth decides to stop the red comet using Void, because he wants the power to himself. How funny! The Betrayer got betrayed. But then...
What? What is happening? Oh, dang, that failed.
Now it's Dante's turn to stop the comet by warping to it with Umbra. With Phoenix and the copied powers of his Titan Maelstrom, he did what Razimoth could not.
Dante's gone. He's really gone.
Oh wow, he actually went there. 2 more episodes to go, and Den finally confronts his brother. Harrison still thinks that Den abandoned him, so they start fighting, even as something weird begins to happen with the corpse of the Betrayer. Den power bonds with Vigilante and overwhelms Harrison, causing the latter to drop the amulet for Bezella's hive. This causes the altar to rise up, and it also seems to reanimate the Betrayer's corpse.
I have come to herald your doom. The blood spirals will inherit the earth.
You couldn't be a little more excited? Despite Sophie insisting that our heroes can fight him, the Betrayer tells everyone that their strongest fighter is already gone. All the Huntik Seekers don't take this well.
This is not right. It's just not right. It should have been me, not him! It's not fair!
Oh, and I guess the Betrayer didn't need the comet, because he can use his powers to activate the mark himself. Locke finally snaps out of his funk and achieves the power of Super Saiyan Blue.
I'm glad Dante isn't here to see this. I'd hate it if he had to waste his time on someone like you!
Our heroes get a second wind, starting the epic battle between Locke and the Betrayer. Man, this show really knows how to deliver a cool and dramatic finale, but the Betrayer reveals one last trick to Locke. The tome belonging to Ethan was fake all along. Razimoth let our heroes have him trick them into getting to this point. And the hologram isn't even Ethan, but rather...
Demogorgon. The legendary Titan of Betrayal.
Okay, so assuming Locke is the only one who can use the Will Blade, and is the only one who can unseal the mark so you can free the nullifiers, you're really damn fortunate that the organization or your own guys didn't kill him earlier. Did you have a backup plan or something? Anyway, Zalia decides that she can't stay away from her friends anymore and chooses to leave Harrison. But Harrison tells her not to go, having grown attached to her while she was undercover, which causes her to finally break her cover and set off. I guess this finally makes Harrison realize that he was fighting for the wrong side, and with Den's help he stops the Betrayer before he can hurt Zalia. As we enter the final episode, it's looking like the fate of humanity is resting on those brothers. Well, way to spoil it, guys! This almost has the same kind of spoiler energy as... The brothers do hold their own against the Betrayer for a bit, though eventually they need backup from Locke and Sophie. Zalia joins in too, but Demogorgon creates clones of our heroes as Titans to confuse them, which can then brainwash their owners too. This is when Locke power bonds with Pendragon and frees them, but the Betrayer decides to take the form of its original owner to subdue it. The Betrayer is finally ready to activate the Spiral Mark, using stronger magic to push away our heroes and their Titans. It looks to be over, but it seems Dante left one final message in Zalia's book.
You can't get rid of me that easily.
And then Umbra returns, having brought back Dante's ashes. That's funny. But of course, Dante copied Phoenix's ability to revive itself. Now it's time for Dante versus the Betrayer and the final push. This is where things get really anime.
Dragon Fist!
And so Locke asks Sophie for the real prophecies of Nostradamus and not the ones planted by Demogorgon. They say that the Betrayer fears his own medicine, aka backstabbing, which convinces Dante to grab him while Chariot blasts his back to reveal the mark that makes him immortal. Locke throws the Will Blade, which goes through the Betrayer, and he dies.
See? I told you we'd save the world this time!
And so things wind down with Dante joining the senior Huntik Council, while Locke assumes leadership of his former team of Sophie, Zalia, and Den. However, as the series ends with Montague and the team investigating the Spiral Mark, it seems to pulsate, almost as if it's calling out to something. And sadly, that's where the series ends, on a cliffhanger that seems to promise a follow-up to the Nullifiers, or maybe the actual whereabouts of Locke's missing father. It's a shame, because I kinda wanted to see where the show could have gone with this. Again, this is one of the better Italian animated shows I've seen, as the characters and story are far more engaging than anything produced by Studio Sec or Mondo TV. This is true even if the character development in the season wasn't as good as the first. Not to say it didn't have its moments, and assuming leadership in the Casterwills, Den learning to use his powers for good so that he can get his brother back from the forces of evil, and even a slight continuation of Zalia's arc regarding loyalty to her friends and her past spy work. But the rest of the cast, notably Locke and Dante, are not as well developed given the increase in action and pacing. The designs of the new Titans continue to be cool and interesting, but I wish the animation didn't have to resort to that smooth movement that makes me think of those 60 FPS videos. The fights are also kinda awkward than many tend to be, and there are far less connections between historical figures and the Titans like in Season 1. The nullifiers also don't get a lot of exposure with just the one who barely got to show off its powers. I guess that's what the third season would have done, but I guess low viewership and sales prevented that. Still, most of the bigger threats are gone, so unless something new comes along to continue what the blood spiral started, Season 2 ended things about as well as it could. We just have to leave the rest to imagination and fanfiction. Otherwise, this season at least was more of the same. Might not be as good as last time, but the overall package is enjoyable in a Saturday morning cartoon kind of way. Both seasons can be found on the official Huntik channel, and it might just be worth your time, as it was mine. Next time, we're going to take a look at a sequel to a video game that I have not covered. I'll see you then.